So here we are in Myerstown, Pennsylvania. We are at the Union Cemetery. We're actually in the newer section because there's the older section over there, which I will go over at some point, because my ancestor is buried there who fought in the war for the American Revolution, and that's sort of my connection. He served, I think, 1782. His name was Christian Walborn. My Walborn ancestors actually started here. But we've got a really cool thing here where they have a cannon, and then they have a number of graves here. I've actually never stopped here and looked at this. Some of the badges they have on some of these are incorrect. They have War of 1812. These are all clearly Civil War vets, or at least seemingly are that. So let's take a peek at this and turn this around. So there you have the cannon, and over here you have the old, it was involving the Reformed Church and Frieden's Lutheran, which used to be there in the corner, which is now over here. I think it was built in the 60s, and around 1960-ish is when they tore the old church down. There are pretty cool pictures of that church back in the day. But yeah, William T. Souders, 1845-1923. Edward Trout, 1863 to, or 1840 to 1982, or I'm sorry, 1918. Some of these sometimes I'm just sort of looking, I'm not sure what the DISC, I don't know if he was, that means he was wounded, 1863. I'm not quite sure what that means, but here's George Cromer. He's 1831 and 1914. Frank Sheets. Discharge. Okay, I'm sorry. That's what that means. That means discharge. He was 1863. This guy was 1865. July 3rd, 1838 to 1913. This guy was actually in the U.S. Navy. Now this, he died in 1902, so once again he would be a Civil War vet. Michael Sauerwein. So this looks like he died in 1907. He was 81 years old. And then last but not least, Isaac Kaufman. He died in 1906. And they have a couple of these that say War of 1812. Clearly not War of 1812. This is all Grand Army of the Republic. These gentlemen all served. You can see the flags all throughout here. But we're going to go looking for one soldier in particular, which I will wind up putting that up then another time. But he's Daniel R. Fisher is buried here. He's the soldier that I am portraying for this Saturday on the 24th, Myerstown, in a time of war at the Isaac Meyer Homestead. So let's go look around here and see if we can find him. Wanted to quick do this just quick. The cannon they have here. Ira I. Ulrich, Post 55, in memory of veterans of all wars. Let's see if there's anything else on the other side here. Has the same thing, Post 55. But let's go searching. Here's Arthur L. Reich. He was a corporal in the U.S. Army, World War II. There's a sort of neat stone over here as well. It's just sort of unique. Robert Andrew Ulrich, 1926 to 1981. Son, brother, husband, father, friend. He was also World War II. This guy is World War I. Leroy L.F. Hayes, the 1st Infantry, NJNG, 1894 to 1950. So he would clearly be World War I. The stone I'm looking for is Daniel R. Fisher, like I said. This guy's a Civil War vet here. He, John Hayes. And here you can see how we just saw Hayes. It's like through the generations how these people, families just served. And we'll go down to a stone for, at the VFW, where they have the names of the guys through the different wars, and it's very interesting because you could see the different generations from World War I to World War II, and then into Vietnam and Korea. All these guys that served generation after generation for our country from this area. This is John H. Ruth, 1892 to 1947. He was a corporal with the U.S. Marine Corps, World War I. I also think I found in the front section there, I found people that were fishers that would very much fit with being his parents' age. And here we got a few more fishers. Now these ones are a little older. But weirdly, the Daniel Fisher is not on the him or the Carl F. Bowler as well. Both of them were killed months after the war in Europe was over. Both of them were, I think, well, Carl F. Bowler, he was certainly he was a pilot. Daniel R. Fisher, I believe, probably because of his size, may have been a pilot, but it's probably more likely that he was a mid-gunner. Just because he was 5'8", 158 pounds. The guys that were really small, they would have been sort of the rear gunner, front gunner, or the bubble gunner that was on the bottom of the plane, because they had to be able to fit in there like a sardine. And they wanted to have guys that were of a certain weight, just to keep the weight down in the plane itself. But really hoping, I want to try to find his grave, because I want to be able to put on a map, if people want to go and visit his grave, where to find him. So we'll be back in a bit. Here's a grave. This is over in the old cemetery now. I went through the entire new cemetery, New Union Cemetery, and couldn't find Daniel Fisher anywhere. But here's Elizabeth L. Spangler, U.S. Navy, World War II. Martin Spangler, served in World War I. Really hoping that I can find him, but I mean, you would think any veteran has a flag and a badge normally. Sometimes they do get missed, and that may be why. Maybe it's a higher likelihood that he's here somewhere, which I don't think it is him, but it's a stone just like his. Now, his is engraved. These are upraised letters. C. Schultz. I'm not quite sure which war this guy would have fought in, because it's 1834 to 1885, so probably Civil War. That's what my assumption would be. It'd be nice if they had a map and said this is where it exactly is, row whatever, but a lot of cemeteries aren't like that. So these very old tombstones that are laying down that broke off. I was hoping this was going to be easier, be able to find them. I'll assume, unfortunately, this may not happen. Try to believe the best, but then you're sort of is what it is. That's not it either. It'd be stone just like this. U.S. Air Force, Korea. Pasquale and Rinaldi. It has Daniel R. Fisher on it, and Staff Sergeant. And this says World War II Staff Sergeant, United Army Air Corps, Staff Sergeant, and then 1920 to 1945. Because he was killed, I believe it was October 23rd. I'm just not seeing a whole lot more flags here. I'm sure he's here somewhere. It's just whether it's in the newer section or the older section. So I'd like to also find Christian Wellborn, but I don't think I'm going to be attempting that today. See a couple over here that are the type of stone that potentially would be him, and that is him over there. I believe it says Fisher, so I believe we have found it. It makes me happy. It also makes me happy that it's right next to the, appears to be that it's right next to the road as well, so people can stop and pay their respects. I hope. Here we are. Can't hardly read it anymore, but Daniel R. Fisher, 1920 to 1945. Staff Sergeant, Army Air Corps. And then it would have the dates here. I will put a picture up so you guys can actually read it. And here's another Fisher. Wonder if this is his John. It looks like John Roy Fisher, 1895 to 1944. Looks like he served in World War I. So that answers some questions for me as well. There's Daniel G. Fisher, 1875. I'm gonna have to look some of these up then, just so I know. But yeah, all the Fishers are right here. So this would be his family. I guess that's the father and the mother, and I don't know, it's sort of. I wonder if this is his father. Because he would have been 25 when he was born. I'll have to see if I can find something. But he actually died a year before his son. And then these folks would have probably been his grandparents. And it was their son and then their grandson who died in war. Well, I'll have to see if I can find out who he was married to so I can do a little bit better of a job. Go from there. So we're going to go down to the War Memorial next at the VFW, and but I'm glad we found his grave. So as always, Winston, thanks for coming along, and we'll see you all about town. So I wanted to add it in because we're doing this historical performance on Daniel G. Fisher on the history of Myerstown in a time of war. And I am portraying Daniel G. Fisher, who was a real human being, as we found in this cemetery. found out quite a bit of really interesting information, which I will not share any further here because we're going to be refilming the performance because I didn't take into account that my camera does not record audio terribly well from a distance. So we're going to be doing things a little different, uh, putting it together in segments and put it together all as one so I can have the performance just as it's intended to be. And we're going to do some special touches as well. Josh, Sharon, and myself. Josh and Sharon are the ones that designed the tombstone that we had. They made out of wood. It's really beautiful, beautiful work. Also, thanks to Jay, uh, he is getting me a laptop that will allow me to now start doing all my stuff off of a laptop and start using that professional movie camera. So we'll also be able to pick up audio a lot better. But these pictures are of myself dressed as Daniel G. Fisher. He was United States Army Air Corps, and as far as I can tell, he most likely was in a B-17 Flying Fortress. He would have, because of his rank, would have been one of four positions, which would have been either the rear gunner, one of the mid gunners, or the bubble gunner that was underneath. Now, the turret gunner usually was a 5'2" to 5'3" guy, just because you had to be the smallest person in the crew, and you had to be able to fit in there like a sardine. Whereas because of his size, being 5'8", 158 pounds, probably wasn't the tail gunner either. Probably was one of those mid belly gunners, and that's what he did, and he made it through the war, shockingly, only to wind out passing away, unfortunately, when he got back to the States. But as always, I want to say thanks for coming along on another adventure. And here at the very end, before we finish this film, I'll actually show you tombstones of those four that we were looking at that you could hardly read, of what they looked like probably about 10 years ago when you could actually read them. So thanks once again, as always, and we'll see you all about town. So here we have the graves back when they had all that lichen and, biological material that had grown on them where you can't read them anymore. But this was Daniel G. Fisher. He was the grandfather of Daniel R. Fisher. And next up would be Anna M. Fisher. Her maiden name was Callahan. She played an important role just like his grandfather because they had lived in Myerstown. So that would have been his access and reality to Myerstown because they actually lived in Reading. His father, John Roy Fisher, actually somehow picked up the name Ray. So that's where a lot of confusion comes in, where he's Ray J for John Fisher, even though his actual name is John Roy Fisher. And he served in World War I as an electrician in the United States Navy. And finally, last but not least, you have Daniel R. Fisher, Staff Sergeant in Army Air Corps of World War II. He's the character that I portrayed, the real person that actually existed, and was killed there at the very end or right after the war had ended in a car crash in Santa Ana, California. History is out there, my friends.